Parents of Reddit, do your kids have any friends who have come over once and are not allowed back? If so, what did they do? Our friend's daughter isn't allowed back. She's freaking feral. She just screams and tantrums and growls and bites when she's not getting catered to 100%. Was not a good friend but a kid on next block who hung out with my son and his friends. He first got busted for trying to steal some Xbox games. Daughter saw him put them in his backpack. Next time he gets caught stealing $20 from table. I put it there to pay for pizza delivery, and 5 minutes later it's gone. How stupid do you have to be? His friend can come over but I'll be damned if he comes to another birthday party. He's one of those kids who wants to help the birthday kid open their presents. His parents just sat there while I said over and over, no, wait, let my son do it. He's 8. Too frickin' old for that. I have 5 nieces and nephews under 5, so I've been to far more birthday parties than a childless man should, and this drives me completely insane. Kids stress me out in the first place, but when my perfect little niece is trying to open her presents and her little cunty friends are ripping the paper away, I really feel like beating people. This was a few years ago when my son turned 12. He has a sleepover and this friend of his stole $50 of his birthday money. I didn't even know about it until the kid's dad called and told us what happened. We remained friendly with him, but Matthew was never allowed over again. Good on the friend's dad to call you about it. I watched my daughter's friend, Brandy, for the night while Brandy's mom went to a wedding. The mom called me the next day to let me know she had flown 500 miles away instead and I was going to have to watch her daughter for the rest of the weekend. And then she promptly turned off her cell phone. So here I am with Brandy and my 2 daughters on a 3-day weekend. As fate would have it, this poor girl has a severe case of ADHD and no medication, no clean clothes and no family nearby. Mom had just moved to the area from out of state that I could call for backup. This girl literally bounced off my walls for 3 days and nights. She broke furniture, tore toys apart, wrote on walls, threw temper tantrums. All unacceptable behavior, especially from a 10-year-old. When I dropped the girls off at school on Tuesday, I notified the office that Brandy had been unmedicated for 72 hours. They tried calling the mom immediately. Phone was still shut off. They were finally able to contact a great aunt who drove across state lines to pick Brandy up. I know it's not that poor girl's fault. That being said, she can no longer come to my home, because I'm fairly certain her mother will never come back for her. We're the opposite. One of my son's friends pees the bed still. He's 11. He's not sick, just still growing. His parents made it abundantly clear that nobody invites him over. We're the only ones. My wife and I changed and washed more sheets than a laundromat. I feel bad for him. He's a good kid, so we just change the sheets. I was a bedwetter until I was about 8. We had a plastic sheet for under the regular sheets. Protects the mattress. Thank you for being so kind to him. Had a friend over once as a kid. She decided it would be funny to tie a rope around my cat's neck and throw it off the top bunk bed. Lucky she had the rope long enough so the cat landed fine, but who would even think of doing that? She did not come over again. At my 9th birthday party I had some of my friends stay over, and I had them sleep in my room so they all had a bed. We were tiny and my bed was huge. When I woke up, they had drawn on all of my posters on my walls and were laughing at me. Then I expressed how the frick off I was. I ignored them ever since, and my mom banned the lot from our house. Called each one's mom and told them what they did before they got picked up. Similar story to my 11th birthday party, except my guests emptied the contents of my parents' fridge all over my nightgown as I slept, plus dog food. My parents called all their parents in the middle of the night and made them come pick up their gremlins. This isn't from my parents' perspective, but rather mine. When I was little, a friend came round to stay for dinner. He lives round the corner from my house, and for dessert we had some ice cream. There were different flavors: strawberry, vanilla and chocolate. Now, my friend asked for chocolate, and I asked for vanilla. My mum goes off and gets them, but comes back with 2 vanillas. Oh no, minor mistake, right? Nope. My friend picks the bowl up, looks her dead in the eyes and says, this is vanilla. I asked for chocolate. Do you think you can get it right next time? I didn't see him again. Something tells me this is him mimicking how his parents treat waiters and waitresses. My son's brand new friend walked home with him from school one day to hang out and play video games. About a half hour after they got here, the friend's mom called demanding that I send him home, saying that he was grounded for shoplifting over the weekend and constantly skipping school. That was the first and last time the friend was over. That had to be a challenging moment. I worry about my son getting hooked in with the wrong kids as he grows up. Glad to see that you asserted some control over the situation. I had a neighbor that turned out to be a thief. If lose something, and magically he'd have a new one within the next day or so. Happened with video games, Legos, my Batman action figures, and all sorts of stuff. I finally figured it out when my Razor scooter disappeared, and his mom bought him one exactly like mine, complete with hand grips wrapped in neon duct tape. Told my mom, she called his mom, and all of my stuff appeared, just as magically, on my front porch about a week later. Frick Josh. Oh my god, a kid across the street from me named Josh took my stuff too. I'd just see my stuff in his house and I'd take it back. Frick Josh. I am not a parent but a brother. My brother's friend said something along the lines of at least my mom doesn't have cancer and yeah he was never allowed back. In my house that would warrant a bro bond via beatdown. Not the parent but I was watching the kids while it happened. My little brother, 7 at the time, had a friend over one night and he was a monster all night, yelling, throwing things, jumping on the furniture. I sent them to bed around 9 and about an hour later this kid comes downstairs and starts going through all of our cabinets right in front of me. I sent the little crap back to bed. I went to bed myself, well after 2 AM. But I guess he got up and raided the cabinets again because his mother called my mom the next day after taking him home and was upset that he had eaten so much junk food. The little rat stole every snack we had in the house, eaten it, and shoved all the wrappings in his bag. Tyler is no longer welcome in our home. My son is not allowed to have friends over if I'm not home. So one friend decided to kick in our closed doggy door in retaliation. Mangled the entire door. I didn't even have to say a word to my son. Mom, he's never invited over again. I bet it was an ordeal for your son. A kid like that seems unpredictable. I'd be crapping myself wondering what he'll do next. Not a parent, but in elementary school my brother and I had a smelly little friend named Reed who wasn't allowed back to our house after he visited one day. Why? My parents found a crap stain on the couch cushion he'd been sitting on. It's really a mystery how it got there. I don't have any memory of him pulling his pants down and using the cushion to wipe his butt, but maybe he was just a stealthy mother sucker. I wasn't allowed to play with the kid down the street because his dad moved out, and he lived with his alcoholic mom. At the time, I was so jealous because he didn't have a curfew, was always cutting school and his older brother sold pot and always had the newest Nintendo games. I wasn't allowed to play with this other kid a few houses down because he was always getting in trouble and doing dangerous things like throwing rocks at cars. I was kinda mad, but it wasn't that big of a deal since we didn't really hang out much anyways. The first kid ended up being in and out of jail for most of his life. He dropped out of high school and joined a gang. If a bunch of white kids claiming to be a set can actually be considered a gang. I'm not sure what happened to him after that. The second kid did a few years in prison. The last straw was when he stole his parents' car and ended up crashing into a house so hard that he knocked it off of its foundation. He was extremely drunk and on acid. I don't know what happened after that, but his parents ended up losing their house and moved away. Your parents were wise people. When I was in 7th or 8th grade my BFF was a 6th grade boy I had known forever. I am a female. We will call him Jeff. He had a computer with internet in his room so one day we looked up any sex words we could think of and added .com to the end of it. It was awesome. Except we couldn't figure out how to clear the history and a few days later his dad had a talk with me about how my boyfriend I had brought by a few days before used Jeff's computer to look up dirty websites. Boyfriend was not allowed back. Jeff and I were in the clear. Good thinking. Jeff. Jeff is a freaking champ. I'm brown and Muslim. The day or few days after 9/11 happened I went over to my friend's house to play. I was 9 years old and didn't know what really happened. Knocked on his door and his dad said he isn't home. While I was walking back home I looked back and saw the kid looking out the curtains. After that day his dad forbade him from ever playing with me. Oh yeah, well that makes sense cause obviously a 9-year-old was in on the whole thing. Keeping his family safe from tiny terrorists I guess. My parents banned one of my sister's friends from coming over after they caught her picking up a £20 note from my dad's wallet, which was in his coat pocket. Not the parent but the daughter. Long story short, my mum suffers from depression. You know, the kind that makes you not get out of bed some mornings, get dressed or want to do anything. Yeah, that kind. On the other hand, she has always been a great mum, done her best and provided for us. In high school I invited a few friends around my house for the first time. I wasn't in the slightest bothered about them coming around on one of mum's bad days, as many friends have met my mum and love her warmth and quirkiness. But this one girl, we get home and my mum is in the living room. First thing this girl says, and not so quietly, I might add, Jesus gymless bottom bitch, your mum could have made a bit of an effort. The house is a tip. My face dropped. I knew my mum heard because she didn't turn around to greet this girl. It clearly hurt her. I tried my best to laugh it off and come back with something witty, but it crushed me. My friends soon left as I was being extremely cold. After I closed the door my mum softly said to me, I don't want that little snobby brat to come here again. I laughed and told her that she will never come back here again. My mum smiled and we had a good old girly bee about her. She never came back in my house, nor did she stay my friend for much longer. You're a good daughter. Many kids would feel embarrassed by their mom or untidy house and laugh along with the friend. I'm sure your mom remembers that fondly. My parents banned one of my friends. She was super obnoxious and I don't know why I was even friends with her, but my mom was very specific that my dad was sleeping since he worked nights and to keep it down for a couple of hours until he got up. This girl decides to start a game of tag. No one joined in our house, and managed to bang on every wall including several adjacent to his bedroom, waking my dad up and pee my mom off for beating on the walls. When I was a kid, my brother had one of his little buddies stay over. We never knew they were Mormon. My mom had rented Dirty Dancing that night and let them watch it because it really isn't a very dirty movie. His parents never let that kid play with my brother again. Have a stepson. A few years ago, he had a friend over. We'll call him Max. He was very rude to my stepson's father and me. We called him out on it immediately and every time. His attitude only got worse. He spent the night and slept on the couch in the upstairs living room. I went upstairs the next morning and the entire upstairs smelled like garbage. I took out the garbage and the compost, but the house still smelled horrible. Then it dawned on me, it's a little bastard on the couch. I aired out the house as much as possible, but it was only when Max left that the smell left. My stepson was pretty embarrassed by his friend's behavior. Max has pretty douchy parents, so I guess the apple don't fall far from the tree. When I was younger there were people I was not allowed to visit. My mother had beat up their mother, and even a few fathers, and grudges were still held some 15 years later. By the time I was born, my mother had 13 assault charges against her. I didn't have many friends growing up. I'm no parent, but when I was in grade school a couple friends came to my house and gave me titty twisters until I cried. So yeah, they were definitely not allowed back. Not a parent, but an aunt who frequently watches nieces and nephew. There is one girl who is never allowed here while I watch them, and I think my bro has banned her too. The first time she came over she was polite, then she became a demon. The first time I watched her I sent her the frick home. 5 minutes of being here and she demanded that I show her my collection of some very rare dolls. I said no, and let it slide. We all have our days. Then she started acting like she owned the place, and hit my nephew, and started to insult and hit my nieces when she wouldn't get her turn to play with their doll. I told her to go the frick home. I then called her mother, and had a nice long chat with her mother about her daughter being a rude little crap. She hadn't left for an hour before her mom and her showed up on my bro's doorstep demanding that I'll let her play with my nieces. I shut the door and walked outside. I ripped her mother a new butthole about her daughter being violent, manipulative, rude, and demanding. I told them that as long as I was with the kids, little girl would not be allowed over. ever. My eldest niece still thinks she's ugly and fat because of that little crap. And the younger has been since trying to grow her hair out because this 11-year-old girl told her she looked like a dyke. My nephew is scared to play outside because she told him he would get stolen. He's 3. I swear if she goes anywhere near my bro's kids again I'm going to have so many issues. Many of them involving the law and her mother. What an awful freaking person. I had a friend growing up that instead of knocking the standard 3 medium volume knocks would pound on the door until someone answered. That pissed my mom off a lot. She was also a little diva bee that insisted on trying to run the house. Not in our home, Pris. Not a parent, but this will stun you. I had a friend back in primary school. He always seemed a bit sketchy, but I didn't notice him doing anything untoward, so I just accepted he was a bit odd. Now my father is a GP and, at the time, we lived in a smallish town where everyone knew everyone. One day, a rumor started circulating the school that I was a drug addict and dealt in child pee. Not even close to kidding. It hurt like heck, and no one seemed to know where it came from. After a while I just dealt with it and ignored the crap. But it persisted and resulted in a lot of infantile bullcrap teasing. The clincher of this is, I had the little bastard stay over for the weekend. He pretty much ignored me, played on my computer and frequently vanished, only to reappear hours later acting as if nothing happened. I'd already decided at that point to cut the friendship once he'd gone home. He went home, and the entire family breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that was the end of that. Not an hour later, police showed up. We knew the officer that knocked on the door. He said they'd had a call from the little bastard's parents. Between the time he left my place and when he got home, he'd got high as frick. Not just a usual kid smoking some pot stuff. And he said I'd given it to him. House was searched and they found a whole heap of drug stuff on the top shelf of my closet. And a zip disk full of naked kids. I was floored beyond belief. I'm not and never have been even remotely interested in drugs and I'm sure as heck not interested in snot-nosed kids. Fast forward a bit. I had to go through testing and questioning that made me feel like absolute crap. Little bastard did too, and kept proclaiming his innocence. The thing is, his story kept changing. Suspicious as heck, and his parents were elusive as frick. To get to the point, he got the drugs from a cousin of his who stole it from somewhere. He got the pee off the internet. His mother was a patient of my father's. Well, ex-patient. He threw her out of his surgery for some reason I can't remember. Little bastard blamed me and tried to frame me, whilst using me as an excuse for drug use. Thankfully the local cops were good about it. Small town, so everyone knew the full story and didn't even think about blaming me or my parents. Little bastard and his family left town not long after. Apparently they were shunned by all. I got a few weeks off school and got counseling over it. Didn't need it per se. I was just pissed off that a supposed friend would do that. So yeah, that kid never came back. But I'd say it'd be safe to assume he was persona non grata. I often wonder what happened to that kid. I like to think he ended up badly. I might be biased but comeuppance etc. I had a friend who came over once with his brother. They hung out for a while. Then his brother stole my copy of Gran Turismo for the original PlayStation. His parents didn't care and I never got the game back. I'm still looking for a copy of both discs to buy. Check out Amazon. I bought Gran Turismo 2 new in the case for like $10 a while back for the nostalgia. My friend has a video of my parents threatening to hog tie him while they were drunk. He refuses to delete it. My parents hate him. Ha, nice twist. When I was in my young teens we had a family move in next door. There was a girl my age and a younger brother. We got along well, but the parents really didn't like kids over, so they usually came to my house. They always smelled like feet. How? I do not know, and what I saw of their house was filthy. Then one summer the girl got lice and the mother refused to keep the kids home from school. I ended up getting it and the parents actually told my parents and friends that I was the one who have it to everyone. My mom was pissed since they had it a week before I got it. I'm still a bit bitter. One of my brother's friends stole the 8-ball from our pool table. My dad said all would be forgiven if the kid would just bring it back. If he didn't, he was never allowed at our place again. The kid refused to return the ball and we never saw him again. My dad was extremely pissed off because he had to buy a new set of pool balls. You can't buy just one ball. My cousin's son isn't allowed back to my house. I caught him peeing on my bathroom wall and in my shower during a house party. Not a parent, but when I was a kid my friend was a total nutsack. I was at a friend's place and he said it was a good idea to walk across the city to another friend's place. I didn't question it because my parents let me do this. But when we got back, oh Lord Jesus, his parents were mad. They said I was a bad influence and never let me back. Every time I tried to call that friend their parents made some excuse and put the phone down. Only spoke to him at school. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.